My name is Doctor Lena Wallace. 15 years ago, I was Amara Jenkins, the girl my parents abandoned at a train station as a joke. I still hear their voices through the glass. Let's see if she can find her way home. I never went back. This morning, my phone lit up with 22 missed calls. After 15 years of silence, they suddenly need me. Their million-dollar real estate empire is collapsing under fraud allegations. They don't know I'm a forensic accountant. They don't know they just handed me the knife. This isn't salvation. It's reckoning. It's 7 a.m. From my penthouse overlooking Lake Michigan, Chicago lies still, blue and gray beneath the mist. Everything in my life, every cup of coffee, every spreadsheet, is perfect. I control every number, every breath. I find truth in data. I do not allow chaos to exist. The air is silent. Glass, steel, and marble gleam around me. No photos. No memories. Only order. I need that, like armor between me and the past. Then the silence breaks. Not my work phone. My personal iPhone, the one that almost never rings. A strange number. Atlanta area code. I hit mute. It rings again. And again. This isn't a call. It's a siege. I cross my arms, watching the screen flash, 5 calls, 10, then 20. When the ringing finally stops, only thick silence remains. And one message. Amara, it's Mom. You need to come home. Your father's in serious trouble. That name, Amara, slices through me like ice. I haven't heard it in 15 years. I thought it was dead. But it wasn't. It was sleeping, buried deep inside me. Not sadness. Not fear. Rage, sharp, deliberate, awakening. My name is Lena Wallace. I repeat it like a prayer. But 15 years ago, I was Amara Jenkins. And Amara, that 16-year-old girl, was killed. Not by a stranger. But by her own family. My mother, Vivian. My father, Marcus. And my brother, Jamal, the golden child, laughed as the train doors closed between us. They called it a joke. They left me alone, penniless, homeless, in a strange city, just to see if I'd survive. They thought they erased me from their lives. They were wrong. That day, they decided to erase their flaw. They thought I'd crawl back, begging. That they were teaching me a lesson. They were right, just not about the lesson. They taught me that Amara Jenkins meant nothing to them. So I let her die on that platform. And I became Lena Wallace. Lena Wallace is not worthless. Not a joke. And Lena Wallace has just been invited home. I was 16. But that memory is still sharp, like glass slicing skin. 30th Street Station, Philadelphia, reeked of diesel and pretzels. The loudspeakers groaned overhead like some ancient beast. We were there for Jamal, always Jamal. A campus tour, a celebration of the golden child. I was just the shadow, the clumsy little sister dragged along for appearance's sake. My father, Marcus, clapped Jamal on the shoulder, laughing loud enough for the world to hear. My mother, Vivian, glowed with the pride of an Ivy League future. A perfect family, at least on camera. I trailed behind, hauling 2 bags, mine and Jamal's. He complained. I stayed silent, as usual. Then a small collision. My bag hit the floor, spilling books and sweaters onto the filthy tiles. Amara, for God's sake, my mother sighed, not even turning around. Hurry up, the train's about to leave. I bent down, cheeks burning. By the time I looked up, the whistle had blown. The doors were closing. I ran. My palm hit the glass just as the doors sealed shut. On the other side, they stood watching. No panic. No movement. Just watching, calm, detached, as if it were a scene in a movie. Jamal laughed first, bending over, shaking with amusement. My mother smiled, that small, razor-edged smile. But my father. That image never left me. He lifted the camcorder, focused the lens on my face. Pressed the red button. Smiled. And said clearly through the glass, let's see if she can find her way home. The train pulled out, a gust of cold air slashing across my face. I didn't chase it. I didn't cry. I just stood there, watching those three familiar faces fade into the window's reflection, until all that was left was a thin silver line stretching down the tracks. They thought I'd break. That I'd be scared. That the police would find me and bring me home, a lesson learned for the stubborn daughter. They had no idea what they'd done. They didn't abandon a child. They created a weapon. But they forgot one thing. They forgot my grandfather, the only person who ever saw me as an asset, not a burden. He taught me how to read ledgers, to see the story behind every number. He loved me in a way they never did. And he died 3 weeks before that trip. What they didn't know was that inside my torn backpack, right beside the book I dropped, was a thick envelope he'd given me, his final gift. Inside were $5,000 in cash, a legal birth certificate under a new name, Lena Wallace, and a small note with an address in Chicago, where an old friend of his ran a student boarding house. He'd given me a way out. And that morning, as their train pulled away, I realized they'd just given me a reason to use it. I stood up, brushed the dust from my knees, slung the backpack over my shoulder, and never went home. 15 years later, my phone rang again. A new number. Atlanta. I hit speaker. The sound echoed softly through the steel and glass stillness of my kitchen. A shaky breath. Then a voice I thought had been buried for good. Amara, oh God. Amara, is that you? Jamal. The golden boy. His voice trembled, thin, fragile, stripped of the arrogance I remembered. You have to come home. Dad's lost everything. The company, the house, everything. Before I could savor the taste of that fear, another voice cut in, sharp, venomous. Give me the phone, Jamal. Useless idiot. Tiffany. My sister-in-law. The social climber who married into the Jenkins name like it was a title. Listen, you bitch, she hissed. I don't know where you've been hiding, but your father's dragging the whole family into the mud. You're coming back to Atlanta to fix this. Do you hear me? I stared at the phone. No apology. Just commands. As if the last 15 years had never happened. I ended the call. The flat beep echoed through the room, final and cold. Something inside me shut completely. They'd never changed. My family never loved, they branded. They didn't need me. They needed the name. They called because they were afraid of losing image, money, legacy. But they forgot one thing. Amara Jenkins is dead. And the woman they just called is Doctor Lena Wallace. I walked into my office. My laptop still glowed with a $500 million merger draft. I closed it. Opened a blank browser. Typed, Jenkins Heritage Homes. Hit enter. No anniversary features. No glossy architecture spreads. Just headlines, cold and clinical, Jenkins Heritage Homes under federal investigation for fraud. Marcus Jenkins charged with embezzlement. $4.2 million missing through shell companies. $4.2 million. A number precise, shameless. I smiled, a thin, blade-sharp curve. They still thought I was the ignorant child they left behind. They forgot I now earn $1,200 an hour to find truth hidden in numbers. I picked up my secure phone. Maria, I said evenly. Cancel all my appointments this week. Her voice wavered. Dr. Wallace, is everything all right? Everything's fine, I said, calm as glass. Book me a one-way ticket to Atlanta. First class. Have a car meet me on the tarmac. I'm going home. The Jenkins estate in Buckhead was just as I remembered, grand, ostentatious, desperate to be admired. The moment the car stopped, I could already hear the shouting behind its walls, Marcus roaring, Tiffany spitting venom, Jamal silent, and my mother, Vivian, trying to salvage the last glittering shards of her empire. I didn't knock. I never knock on doors I'm about to claim. The oak door gave way easily. I stepped into the marble foyer. The argument died instantly. The house fell into thick, stunned silence. They turned. 4 figures frozen in a tableau I had played in my head for 15 years. Marcus, face flushed with rage. Vivian, fake tears shining like glass. Jamal, shaking, hollow. And me, calm. Cold. Unmoved. The girl they abandoned had come home. Not for forgiveness. For reckoning. I stood up. Brushed the dust from my knees. Slung the backpack over my shoulder. And never looked back. 15 years later, the phone rang, an unknown number from Atlanta. I wasn't going to answer. But I did. The sound filled the minimalist kitchen, clean, sterile, almost emotionless. A sharp, shaky breath. Amara, oh God, is that you? Jamal. My brother. The golden child. His voice trembled, thin and broken, like it could fall apart any second. You have to come home. Dad. Dad's losing everything. The company, the house, everything, his words choked off. Then another voice sliced through, high, sharp, venom-laced. Give me the damn phone, Jamal. Useless idiot. Tiffany. My sister-in-law. Her voice, sweet and corrosive as acid. Listen, you little bitch, she hissed. Your father's going down, and he's taking the Jenkins name with him. You're coming back to Atlanta to fix this. Got it? No apology. No remorse. Just orders. I hung up. The cold click of disconnection sounded final and strangely satisfying. They'd never changed. They still thought I was the girl who patched their messes, grateful just to be included. They had no idea who they'd just called. Not Amara, the girl left behind at the train station. But Doctor Lena Wallace, a forensic accountant who earns $1,200 an hour to uncover the secrets people bury in numbers. I opened my laptop. The $500 million merger waited on screen. I closed it. Typed, Jenkins Heritage Homes. Headlines filled the display, Jenkins investigated for large-scale fraud. Marcus Jenkins charged with embezzlement. $4.2 million missing through shell companies. I smiled. Not a warm smile. A blade-thin one. 4.2 million. A number precise enough to trace. And I knew exactly where to start. Maria, I said over the secure line, cancel everything this week. Book a first-class ticket to Atlanta. Car waiting on the tarmac. I was going home. The Jenkins estate in Buckhead hadn't changed, massive, gaudy, desperate to be admired. Even before I stepped inside, I could hear them shouting, Marcus roaring, Tiffany shrieking, Jamal silent, and Vivian, my mother, trying to glue the crumbling empire back together. I didn't knock. I pushed the heavy oak door open. Silence fell, sudden, suffocating. They turned toward me. But they didn't see me. They were searching for Amara, the 16-year-old girl with the cheap backpack. She's gone. The woman standing there was Doctor Lena Wallace, 31, in a tailored Tom Ford suit, my armor. My heels struck the marble floor once, sharp and deliberate, like the sound of a gavel. I am their creation. But I am also their audit. Vivian moved first, arms open, her face arranged into tragedy. Amara, oh sweetheart, you're finally, I stepped back. One pace. Exact. It's Dr. Wallace, I said. My voice was as smooth and cold as the marble beneath us. Her performance died mid-scene. Tiffany laughed, a brittle, acidic sound. God, look at her. Nice suit, Amara. Rental, I assume? We'll reimburse you later. I didn't look at her. Enough, Marcus barked. His chair screeched against the floor. Don't bring your drama into my house. 15 years, and now you show up, what do you want? His tone carried the ghost of authority, but beneath it, I could taste fear. They were drowning. And they wanted to drag me under with them. But I wasn't the scared girl anymore. I stepped closer, meeting his eyes. I'm here, I said slowly, for the $4.2 million lawsuit. The room froze. Jamal swallowed hard, voice shaking. Amara, I mean, Lena, we need you. You're good at this stuff, right? With numbers, I cut him off. I'm a forensic accountant, I said evenly, paid $1,200 an hour to find the truth. I paused, letting the words settle, then added, today, I'll work for free. Tiffany's eyes widened. My mother's fingers trembled against her pearls. I wasn't born to succeed. I was born as their joke. But the joke now had a voice. I held my father's gaze. I get paid, I said slowly, to find the truth. To expose the rot inside empires run by men too arrogant to see they're not gods. I let the words sink in, each syllable sliding beneath his skin like a scalpel. I get paid, I continued, to dismantle men exactly like you. The silence that followed was thick enough to hear the clock beating inside my chest. 15 years erased and rewritten in 30 seconds. I looked at each of them, my mother, my brother, then back at him. You want my help? My tone was calm, almost clinical. Fine. My clock's running. Marcus's mahogany desk was bare except for a half-empty crystal glass. Where are the financial logs? He froze, then stumbled toward his computer. His hand shook, he mistyped the password twice before finally pushing the laptop toward me. I sat on the cream sofa, furniture bought with stolen money. They stood around me, silent spectators. Marcus paced behind me like a caged animal. Vivian sat rigid, fingers laced tight. Jamal and Tiffany were mute. Only the sound of keys. Steady. Cold. Each click like a nail driven into a coffin. To them, it was unbearable tension. To me, it was just another Tuesday. Finally, I stopped typing. I didn't look up. I let the silence stretch, heavy as fog. Then, a quiet laugh escaped my lips. Dry, cold, merciless. You're not just a thief, I said. You're an idiot. Marcus roared and stepped forward. I raised my hand, a small motion, but enough to stop him mid-stride. I'm not talking to you, Marcus, I said, lifting my eyes. I'm talking to Tiffany. I turned the laptop toward her. The arrogance drained from her face, replaced by something raw and primitive, fear. $300,000, I said evenly. Labeled as marketing and community outreach. Paid out 3 weeks ago. A few keystrokes, and the state registration form appeared. That money went to Tifco Solutions. P.O. Box at Mail Center Plaza. Sole proprietor, Tiffany Jenkins. I looked up at her. You're not just a thief, I said softly. You're a lazy one. Tiffany went pale. No, it must be a system error, I cut her off. Errors don't sign your name on registration forms and deposit slips, Tiffany. That's called evidence. Jamal turned to her, voice trembling. What? What did you do? Tiffany froze, then snapped. What did I do? She screamed, her voice cracking. I did what I had to. That money was mine. The price of surviving 10 years with this diseased family. She spun, pointing wildly around the room. You think I married you for love, Jamal? I married the name, the money, the promise, the illusion you all live off of. The room detonated into silence. Marcus's face turned crimson. Vivian's hand flew to her mouth, her skin the color of candle wax. Jamal stumbled back, hollow-eyed. I said nothing. I just watched. The first prey had revealed itself. And exactly as I predicted, the pack began to tear itself apart. An empire built on greed was collapsing, and I'd only been home for 30 minutes. I looked at Tiffany, her face twisted with rage and fear. And in that instant, I thought of him, the only man who ever taught me that power doesn't come from money, but from the ability to uncover the truth. My grandfather, William Jenkins, was the true founder of Jenkins Heritage Homes. My father, Marcus, was merely the heir, a man handed a legacy, a corner office, and a last name he never earned. To my grandfather, the company was heritage. To my father, it was a wallet. When I was 12, the whole family treated me like an afterthought. Only he saw me. His study, the scent of oak, old ink, and pipe smoke, was the only place that felt alive. He'd lift me onto the high stool, point to the ledger, and say, "Look here, Amara. People will lie to you your entire life. But these numbers, they never lie. He didn't teach me accounting. He taught me survival. 3 years later, when he fell ill, I sat by his bed reading the paper aloud. He knew he was dying, and he knew who he was leaving me with, Marcus, the foolish son burning through an empire to feed his ego. A week before he died, he called his personal attorney and made me sit in. "This is your share," he said, his hand trembling but his eyes clear. 10% of the founding stock. No one can sell it, no one can touch it. You'll keep them honest. I promised. 3 days later, he was gone. The will reading was a farce. I was 15, barely dry-eyed, when the family lawyer read out a different will, one giving everything to Marcus. My 10% vanished. They thought I was too young to notice. Too stupid to fight. What they didn't know was that my grandfather believed in numbers, not words. He had filed the real will with the court, and given me a notarized copy of my own. That copy now rests in my backpack, beside an envelope of $5,000 and a new name, Lena Wallace. When they left me at the train station, laughing behind the glass, they thought they'd abandoned a child. They didn't realize they'd just created their creditor, the one person holding the document that could burn down the empire they built on lies. The $4.2 million fraud is just a symptom. The disease began 15 years ago, in that living room. And I am the cure. Underscore 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 enough. My father's voice cracked like thunder, freezing Tiffany mid-breath. Her anger drained, replaced by fear. Marcus was glowing with panic. "I'll deal with her later," he growled, waving Tiffany off like a fly. 300 grand won't ruin us. The real problem is the 4.2. That's the bullet aimed at my head. He paced the carpet, expensive shoes gliding over the thick weave, sweat beading at his temples, voice hoarse. "We're being sued. Cresting Group. They want to gut the company, take everything. They're snakes. They started this, leaked it to the press. They want to destroy my legacy." His breath hitched. His eyes burned. His voice cracked under the weight of his own collapse. Marcus Jenkins, the man who once thought himself the center of the universe, now stood trembling, desperate for an enemy to blame. He looked around the room. And when his gaze finally stopped on me, I knew. He'd found one. The family will reading had been a performance. Their lawyer read a different document, one transferring everything to Marcus. My 10% was gone. They thought I was naive. They thought they'd won. They didn't know my grandfather had already filed the real will with the court. They didn't know he'd given me a copy. They didn't know that the girl they abandoned at a train station now held the piece of paper that could burn down the empire they built on lies. I said nothing then. But now, standing in this living room, I finally spoke. "It's not cresting," I said, eyes still on the laptop screen. "This isn't an external lawsuit." Marcus hissed, "What? Then who?" I closed the laptop gently. My words slid in like a blade. "Cresting isn't suing you. Those letters, those threats, they're smoke. The real problem is right here, inside this house." I listed the trail of numbers, transfers, hidden accounts, coded memos. $4.2 million. Not once, but over 10 years, bleeding slowly, a few thousand at first, then more, until it exploded into phantom costs, development expenses, consulting fees. Every payment authorized with Marcus's signature, but the syntax, the sophistication of concealment, wasn't his. Too precise. Too clean. The handiwork of a fixer. A manager of image and money. "The TJ Education Fund," I said. Silence. No one dared breathe. A 30-second public search led me to a name, Thomas Jenkins, 17, a boarding school student in Connecticut. His mother, Catherine Turner, a former executive assistant at Jenkins, who conveniently resigned the same year the payments began. The puzzle clicked into place. I looked at Marcus. He stared back, cornered, wide-eyed, already understanding. The 4.2 million wasn't hush money, I said evenly. It wasn't an outside threat. It's money you siphoned out of your own company, hidden in a quiet trust in Delaware. Money used to fund a relationship. Money to raise an illegitimate child. The air left the room. Vivian clutched her pearls until her knuckles went white. Tiffany, once manic, turned ghost pale. Jamal stepped back like a puppet cut from its strings. Marcus growled, clinging to an old script. It's cresting. They want to destroy us. The corporation didn't do this, I said. You did. You signed. You authorized. You covered it up. Then I turned, deliberately, to Vivian. And you cleaned it up. You managed the image, the finances. You knew. Vivian's eyes shut. She could no longer pretend. I delivered the final blow, the price of silence, the cost of that secret life. The words burned through the air like acid, stripping away every veneer of civility. The living room fell into absolute stillness. Not the stillness of shock, the vacuum that follows truth. No air left to scream. No stage left to perform. $4.2 million. The disease exposed, not an enemy from without, but a rot that had been feasting from within. I stood there and watched them drown in the truth they'd buried. The mistress. The illegitimate child. The secret that had kept their dynasty standing for a decade now lay naked on the Persian rug. Marcus, the patriarch, the roaring lion, looked as though he'd been shot. Blood drained from his face, leaving a gray cast under the golden light. Arrogance didn't crack this time, it turned to dust. He staggered back into his chair, eyes wide and empty, not at me, not at his son, but fixed on Vivian. And my mother, the Ice Queen, finally broke. The elegant mask she'd worn for 15 years shattered. For a heartbeat, I saw something raw, feral, ancient, not pain, but hatred. Not aimed at me. At him. I hadn't just exposed his secret. I'd exposed her complicity. Vivian's fingers clenched the pearls until they cut into her skin. Her body trembled. A strangled sound, half sob, half snarl, escaped her throat. The perfect image she'd sacrificed her soul to preserve had just been murdered, by the ghost she and her husband created. Jamal spoke first, voice trembling. It's gone? He didn't understand the shame, only the math. 4 million, it's just gone? Tiffany clawed at his sleeve, nails digging deep. Her face was a pure mask of panic. Gone? What do you mean, gone? He spent it? On his bastard? Her words sliced through the air like a knife. The silence shattered, but no one turned on each other. Not yet. Survival instinct made them do something worse. They all turned toward me. Marcus was the first to stand. No rage left, only desperation. Amara, he rasped. Lena, you can fix this. You're a forensic accountant, right? You're smart. You can make it look like Creston's doing. You can save us. He's right, Vivian cut in, her voice sharp as glass. She stepped forward, her cold hands gripping my sleeve, the first time she'd touched me in 15 years. Lena, please. This legacy, it isn't just his. It's your grandfather's. You can't let it die like this. You have to save us. Yeah, Jamal mumbled, dazed. Amara, you're the smart one. You can fix it. Even Tiffany, the snake, changed her tone, soft, pitiful. Dr. Wallace, I'm sorry. The 300,000 was a mistake. I'll pay it back. Please, fix this. You're the only one who can. They stood there, 4 people who once exiled me from their world, now kneeling with their eyes, hanging their lives on my mercy. Marcus, the betrayer. Vivian, the accomplice. Jamal, the coward. Tiffany, the thief. All of them looked at me like I was their last savior. For a heartbeat, the universe went utterly still. No more abandoned Amara. No more invisible Lena. Only me, the one holding the power of life and death inside the house that once cast me out. They were completely, absolutely beneath my mercy. And they knew it. Vivian was the first to break. The woman who had sanctified herself through perfection now trembled, sinking to her knees. Her expensive hands clutched at my Tom Ford sleeve, pleading. Her manicured nails, the same ones polished every week for 15 years, dug into the fabric. Real tears, not the staged kind, streaked through her makeup, cutting black trails down her face. She cried ugly. Amara, she sobbed, then corrected herself. Lena, my darling, please. You have to save us. We're blood. We're family. Her hand shook violently, gripping me like a lifeline. We were wrong, at the train station. It was a mistake, a stupid mistake. I'm sorry. I thought you'd come back. I thought you'd call. Her words dissolved into the air. A mistake. 15 years of silence. 15 years of piecing myself back together from ashes, and now she calls it a mistake. I looked at her, detached. Those tears weren't for me. They were for the house. For the name carved in stone. For the empire collapsing under the weight of its own lies. The silence shattered, but no one turned on each other. Not yet. Survival instinct made them do something worse. They all turned toward me. Marcus was the first to stand. No rage left, only desperation. Amara, he rasped. Lena, you can fix this. You're a forensic accountant, right? You're smart. You can make it look like Creston's doing. You can save us. He's right, Vivian cut in, her voice sharp as glass. She stepped forward, her cold hands gripping my sleeve, the first time she'd touched me in 15 years. Lena, please. This legacy, it isn't just his. It's your grandfather's. You can't let it die like this. You have to save us. Yeah, Jamal mumbled, dazed. Amara, you're the smart one. You can fix it. Even Tiffany, the snake, changed her tone, soft, pitiful. Dr. Wallace, I'm sorry. The 300,000 was a mistake. I'll pay it back. Please, fix this. You're the only one who can. They stood there, 4 people who once exiled me from their world, now kneeling with their eyes, hanging their lives on my mercy. Marcus, the betrayer. Vivian, the accomplice. Jamal, the coward. Tiffany, the thief. All of them looked at me like I was their last savior. For a heartbeat, the universe went utterly still. No more abandoned Amara. No more invisible Lena. Only me, the one holding the power of life and death inside the house that once cast me out. They were completely, absolutely beneath my mercy. And they knew it. Vivian was the first to break. The woman who had sanctified herself through perfection now trembled, sinking to her knees. Her expensive hands clutched at my Tom Ford sleeve, pleading. Her manicured nails, the same ones polished every week for 15 years, dug into the fabric. Real tears, not the staged kind, streaked through her makeup, cutting black trails down her face. She cried ugly. Amara, she sobbed, then corrected herself. Lena, my darling, please. You have to save us. We're blood. We're family. Her hand shook violently, gripping me like a lifeline. We were wrong, at the train station. It was a mistake, a stupid mistake. I'm sorry. I thought you'd come back. I thought you'd call. Her words dissolved into the air. A mistake. 15 years of silence. 15 years of piecing myself back together from ashes, and now she calls it a mistake. I looked at her, detached. Those tears weren't for me. They were for the house. For the name carved in stone. For the empire collapsing under the weight of its own lies. The silence cracked open, but no one turned on each other. Not yet. Survival made them do something else, they turned on me. Marcus rose first, hollow-eyed. Amara, he rasped. Lena, you can fix this. You're a forensic accountant, right? You're smart. Make it look like Creston's fault. You can save us. He's right, Vivian cut in, voice sharp and trembling. For the first time in 15 years, she touched me, cold fingers gripping my sleeve. Lena, please. This isn't just his legacy. It's your grandfather's. You can't let it die. Save us. Yeah, Jamal muttered, stunned. Amara, you can fix it. Even Tiffany's voice turned soft and shaking. Dr. Wallace, I'm sorry. The 300,000 was wrong. I'll give it back. Please, fix it. You're the only one who can. For people who had erased me now stood begging, their pride bleeding out at my feet. Marcus, the betrayer. Vivian, the accomplice. Jamal, the coward. Tiffany, the thief. All of them looked at me like I was their last god. For a heartbeat, the world stopped breathing. No more abandoned Amara. No more invisible Lena. Only me, the woman who held their ruin in her hands. They were completely, utterly beneath my mercy. And they knew it. Vivian broke first. The saint of perfection collapsed, shaking. Her manicured hands clutched my sleeve like a drowning woman. Her tears, black with mascara, carved ugly rivers down her powdered face. Amara, she sobbed, then corrected herself, Lena, darling, please. You have to save us. We're blood. We're family. Her hands trembled, claws of desperation. We were wrong, at the train station. It was stupid, just a mistake. I'm sorry. I thought you'd come back. I thought you'd call. A mistake. 15 years of silence, of stitching myself from ashes, and she calls it a mistake. I looked at her without feeling. Those tears weren't for me. They were for the house. For the name carved in stone. For the empire built on rot, finally crumbling at her feet. But you were right about one thing, I said softly. I will fix it. All of it. Hope flickered in Marcus's eyes, frail, pathetic. He still thought this was a negotiation, that I was still his daughter. I tilted my head, almost kind. You still don't get it, Marcus. You think 4.2 million is the wound. But that's just a scratch. You don't see the knife already at your throat. I let my gaze sweep across them, my mother, my brother, his wife. Creston isn't suing you. The 4.2 million was just mud on the floor. Yes, it doomed the company, but that's not the lawsuit. Marcus blinked, panic rising. Not Creston? But the lawyers, the account freeze, bankruptcy, if it's not them, then who? I smiled. Exactly. There is a lawsuit. There is a creditor. Someone very effective at taking everything you own. Silence thickened until it hurt to breathe. You spent a month fearing a ghost, I whispered. And looking the wrong way. Their faces went pale, Vivian clutching her throat, Jamal trembling, Tiffany frozen. I leaned forward, voice like steel. So tell me, Marcus, if it isn't Creston, then who? He stared at me, the command in him already ash. What are you saying? If not Creston, then who's suing me? Who's doing this? I held his gaze and let the terror bloom. No yelling. No threats. Just silence heavy enough to crush bone. Then the phone buzzed. A single, sharp vibration, like the first shot in a war. On the mahogany table, the screen lit up, David Abel, legal. Marcus flinched, the glow turning his face corpse white. That's the lawyer. Jamal shouted. Marcus jabbed the speaker button with shaking hands. David, tell me. Any news? Did they agree to the extension? But the voice on the other end wasn't calm or in control. It was the sound of a man abandoning a sinking ship. Marcus, it's over. No extensions. They rejected everything. I tried to delay, to bargain, they don't care. They have the court order. Liquidation's begun. They're taking it all. The room froze. Marcus gripped the table until his knuckles went white. Who? He rasped. Who am I fighting? A rustle of papers. Then a sigh, the kind that seals a coffin. The primary creditor, David said, is the parent company behind the lawsuit. Marcus's voice broke. What company? 2 words fell like cold iron, WL Holdings. The phone hit the table. No one spoke. I stood there, calm, unblinking, letting them see it, the truth unraveling in their eyes. William L. Holdings. My grandfather's initials. And now, my company. The masterpiece revealed. The moment the prey realizes the hunter's been standing in their living room all along. I smiled. Not the kind of smile I used to give Tiffany, mocking and cruel. Not the cold, calculated smirk I wore in boardrooms either. This was real, the smile of someone who had walked through 15 years of darkness just to reach this moment. 15 years of work. 15 years of planning. 15 years of holding this perfect instant in my mind. And finally, it was here. The lawyer's voice still echoed from the speakerphone, but I no longer heard it. All that existed now was the sound of victory. Marcus hung up. His eyes, wild with fear, finally met mine. And in that instant, he understood. I don't know how, but he did. The prey had finally recognized the hunter. WL Corporation, he whispered, voice dry as ash. WL Holdings, what is that? I've never heard of it, I didn't answer right away. I let the question hang in the air, let them squirm in that silence. Slowly, I walked past Jamal, gasping for breath, past Vivian clutching her pearl necklace, until I stood before the tall window overlooking the garden my grandfather once planted. In the dark glass, I saw my reflection. No longer Amara Jenkins. Only Lena Wallace. It's an acronym, I said calmly, my voice echoing through the room. Behind me, a soft crack, the sound of Vivian's pearls hitting the floor. An acronym? She whispered. For what? I turned around to face them, the 4 of them, my father, my mother, my brother, my sister-in-law. For rotting bricks in the crumbling Jenkins legacy. It stands for Wallace. Lena. The sound that tore from my mother's throat was barely human. My father froze, his mind short-circuiting like an overloaded machine. How could the 16-year-old girl they abandoned at a train station become the monster holding their execution in her hands today? They thought I was just an accountant. A name on a payroll. A cog in someone else's machine. They had no idea. I survived on the $5,000 my grandfather left me, and I didn't just survive. I learned. I invested. I built. While earning my doctorate, I traded stocks. While climbing the ranks in forensic accounting, I studied how the rich strangle themselves with their own greed. I played by their rules, and then I rewrote them. They thought they were the only millionaires in the family. I became one before I turned 25. Not just an accountant who uncovered fraud, but the one who bought the debts of the damned. The Jenkins empire had been rotting for years. Marcus shook his head, lips trembling. No, that's impossible. You're just... Amara. You can't be, I tilted my head, almost pitying. The banks love me, Marcus. I turned back to the mahogany table, my grandfather's table, where my father had once signed his deceitful contracts. When banks see a company like yours, an old empire crumbling under a foolish, wasteful CEO with secret expenses and bastard children, they want out. They sell the debt cheap, just to wash their hands clean. I met his eyes. I started buying your debt 3 years ago. Quietly, through WL Holdings. Every late payment. Every desperate mortgage to hide another lie. I was the one signing those papers. Vivian's mouth fell open. But the lawsuit David mentioned, I never lied, I said. There is a lawsuit. There are creditors. And there is a liquidation coming. I leaned forward, resting my hand on the table. The person filing the lawsuit, I said softly, is me. 4 pale faces stared back at me in stunned silence. I waited, I whispered. Waited for all of you to drown yourselves. For Marcus's greed, Vivian's deceit, and Tiffany's fraud to drag this house into the mud. And only then, only when the rot reached the foundation, did I strike. They just stared, frozen. They still thought this was about $4.2 million. About an abandoned daughter. They still didn't understand, that was just bait. I have something stronger than money, I said, my voice slicing the air like a blade. I have the real will. The original, notarized copy, with my grandfather's signature, the one you forged 3 days after his burial. I looked at each of them, one by one. You stole my 10%. You committed a federal crime. I could have sent you to prison 10 years ago. I paused, then smiled. But that would have been too easy. That would have been justice. I lowered my voice, almost tender. But what I wanted was painful justice. I wanted you to tear yourselves apart with your own greed. I wanted the world to see the decay I'd seen 15 years ago. So I waited. I built my company. I built my wealth. And then, I began buying your debt. Every mistake. Every late payment. Every dirty financial scar you tried to hide. I bought them all. And when everything was in my hands, I filed the lawsuit. I knew you wouldn't investigate. You were too arrogant, too stupid to suspect anything. You wouldn't go looking for ghosts. And you did exactly what I knew you would. You panicked. And you called someone you thought you could still control. You thought you were calling Amara. But you called Lena Wallace. In your desperation, you begged me to save the empire you had burned to the ground. You didn't realize you were inviting the executioner through the front door. You gave me your internal ledgers, evidence, documents, Tiffany's confession of embezzlement, and your own records siphoning millions to fund your secret life. You didn't just let me in, Marcus. You handed me the weapon that would destroy you. For free. Marcus crumbled. The proud patriarch's mask shattered before my eyes. He staggered toward me, clutching his chest, his face blotched red with rage. No. You can't do this. I'm your father. This is blood, family. You're my daughter, Amara. He screamed, his voice breaking between plea and denial. It was a pathetic sound. He was reaching for a bond he had severed 15 years ago, with a smile and the closing of a train station door. I didn't answer. I only looked at him, eyes cold as steel. Blood, I repeated, letting the word echo, hollow, meaningless, just like it sounded coming from him. In this room, you have no daughter. I took a step forward, my tone calm, precise, the way one might recite a financial statement. The law is clear, Marcus. Abandoning a 16-year-old girl at a train station hundreds of miles from home, that's child abandonment. A felony. And you knew that. His face drained of color. I went on, unstoppable, like a clock ticking toward its final strike. You and Vivian were terrified of exposure. Of losing your reputation, your standing. So you committed an even greater crime, judicial fraud. Vivian broke into sobs. She knew. You lied under oath, I said. You testified that I ran away, that I was unstable. You convinced the state of Georgia to erase my name, just to cover up your own crime. I leaned down, my voice dropping like a verdict. You're right. This isn't about family anymore. Because Amara Jenkins no longer exists. You erased her. And I looked up, meeting his eyes. Am Doctor Lena Wallace. A creditor coming to collect a debt 15 years overdue. His face went blank. Finally, he understood. He understood the legal trap, the moral snare, the consequence of the cruel joke he started. There were no more excuses. No more lies to hide behind. I inhaled calmly. The liquidation meeting, I said. Monday, 10 a.m. My legal team will be there. Your lawyer is invited, of course. I looked at Marcus, the man who once fancied himself a king, now only a shadow in an expensive suit. As the sole creditor of Jenkins Legacy Homes, I will vote to dissolve the company. He shuddered. I saw a small, pathetic flash of pain in his eyes, too little, too late. I glanced around the room, once they'd called it the House of Legacy. And this house, I added, my voice a blade of wind, you mortgaged it to the company long ago. So. I will take it too. Tiffany made a high, mouse-like squeal, cornered. At last I turned back to Marcus, my eyes no longer angry, only judgmental. And the 10% my grandfather left me, the 10% you stole from the 15-year-old girl wept at his grave. I paused, letting the weight of the crime hang in the air. I'm taking it back. All of it. I turned. Done, I said softly. There's nothing left here for me. And as I walked away, the room behind me sank into silence, the silence of total collapse. I turned my back on them. On the wreckage they'd built. My heels struck the marble floor cold as a tombstone. I walked away, just like 15 years ago, except this time I was not the abandoned one. I was the one closing the door. My hand found the brass doorknob. I paused, glanced back. They still stood there, petrified in terror, statues of greed trapped in their own hell. 48 hours, I said, my voice echoing off stone and silence. After that, the locks change. Stay, and your trespassers. I looked at Marcus, a trembling old man amid the ruins of his legacy. I did not call him father. Owen bowed his head, his eyes full of the remorse I once begged for. You used to scream at me through glass, I murmured. You wanted to see how I'd find my way home. I smiled. I found it. Now, get out of my house. I left without looking back, the sound of shattering following me. I had already seen the liquidation report, everything accounted for. Jenkins Legacy Homes was formally dissolved. The largest creditor, WL Holdings. Me. But the real collapse wasn't on paper. It was in public view, in the eyes of the city. Forged documents, slush funds, fraud, it all landed with the district attorney. Marcus and Vivian Jenkins were no longer high society, they were defendants. Thomas Jenkins, the illegitimate child of my father, was no longer a secret. It was scandal. Jamal, the golden boy, was learning how to write a resume in the public library. Tiffany, the ambitious Mrs. Jenkins, filed for divorce before the ink on the indictment dried. The family that once shoved me onto the train tracks had fallen from the train of their own making. I didn't finish them off. They'd been doing it for years, I only sent the final audit. I moved back to Atlanta, not into their mansion, but into a small, bright, quiet apartment. There I'd open the window every morning and listen to the city breathe. I no longer needed armor of glass and steel. The company was just a shell now, I kept it like a file stamped closed. Among the ruins, I found the TJ Education Fund, $4.2 million, the sum my father had hidden for his other child. My first instinct was to erase it, to dissolve it into the system, to scrub his name from everything. But I stopped. There was a line in my grandfather's old notebook I'd read hundreds of times: if something is tainted, make it valuable. The next morning, I signed the new charter for the fund. Name, the Amara Scholarship Foundation. For children left behind, like me. Dirty money, but a clean purpose. It was the only kind of purification I knew. I don't believe in forgiveness. I believe in balance. And as I looked at the freshly printed name on the first grant envelope, I realized I hadn't taken revenge on them. I'd only finished the equation they began. It was dirty money. Stolen money. But then I thought of Thomas, 17 years old, a name and a ledger. He, too, was a victim of lies, like me. A boy who didn't know his future was bought with betrayal. My father used him as a tool, as he had used all of us. I could have kept the cycle going. I could have punished the son for the father's sins. But I didn't. I called my lawyer. I didn't dissolve the fund, I legitimized it. I rebuilt it from scratch, clean, transparent, financed by my own money. I made sure Thomas's education would be paid for by truth, not deceit. The boy wasn't guilty. He was my grandfather's blood, as I was. And my grandfather, the only one who had truly seen me, would never have let him fall. Breaking the cycle isn't just about punishment. It's about choosing differently. Using your power not to inflict pain, but to end it. I chose the kindness I never received. 6 months passed. The Georgia air, the air I once ran from, now smelled like home. I sold the Chicago penthouse. I didn't need glass and steel fortresses anymore. No armor. No walls. Today, I stand before the old family headquarters. The building once stood as a monument to a stolen legacy. But I'm not a ghost come back for revenge. I'm the owner. I sip my coffee, watching the cranes lower the old bronze letters, JENKINSLEGACYHOMES. Each one falls like a piece of the past, heavy and hollow. Then, the new sign rises. Brushed steel. Clear, modern letters, Wallace Jenkins Group. My lawyer asked why I kept the name that once tried to erase me. They didn't understand. Wallace was the name I built, from ashes. Jenkins was never my father's. It belonged to my grandfather, William Jenkins, the man who taught me that numbers never lie, the man who gave me a $5,000 envelope and a way out. I kept the name to honor him, to reclaim what was stolen. I'm not running from Jenkins. I'm redeeming it. My family left me at a train station 15 years ago. They laughed through the glass. They wanted to see if I could find my way home. They didn't know, they had already given me the ticket. A one-way ticket to the life I would build myself. My name is Doctor Lena Wallace. And as I look up at the new sign, the name I created, and the one I reclaimed, I know I've finally come home. Betrayal, I've learned, sometimes forges the strongest weapons. My family thought they destroyed me. In truth, they freed me, gave me the clarity and coldness to build a new legacy, not from them, but from me. Real strength isn't survival. It's becoming the architect of your own legacy. The Atlanta night wind slides over the new steel letters, catching the streetlight like a blade. I turn, step inside the building, not as the one returning, but as the one beginning. The elevator opens to the top floor. My office still smells of fresh paint. On the desk, between neat stacks of clean files, lies a single envelope. No sender. Just one line, scrawled across the front, Amara Jenkins, what your father never told anyone. I stand still. The wind down the hallway rises, and outside, the new sign creaks softly, like the whisper of a past that still refuses to sleep.